So the title of our webinar today is Planning Your Next Adventure, Building a Route on GaiaGPS.com. Most of you have used the Gaia GPS app to record tracks. Some of you have even played around in the web map to plan routes. But today we'll be taking a deeper look at how to use the web map to plan your trips. And then by syncing your phone, all of the planning that you do here on your web map will show up right there in the app so you can take it with you on any adventure. Before we get started, I'd like to do a quick poll to get a sense of what types of activities people here today like to use Gaia GPS for. So just take a few seconds and select any of those activities that you use Gaia GPS for. All right, the results are coming in, and let's take a look what everybody said. So everyone here has said that hiking and backpacking is something they use it for. That's perfect. That's exactly what we're talking about today. But for those of you who are overlanders, mountain bikers, campers, fishers, skiers, or anything else, everything you learn here today will be completely applicable to any of these sports as well. So let's get into it. First thing I'd like to do here is to introduce you to our team here today. My name is John. I'm a member of the marketing team here at Gaia GPS, and I will be taking you through the presentation portion of today's webinar. I'll hand it over to Laura.
Hey everybody, my name's Laura. I'm part of the marketing team here at Gaia GPS, and I'm excited to look into a tool that I use for planning my adventures all the time. I'm excited for you all to get some experience with it.
I'll go next. Hi, I'm Chris. I am the support manager. Odds are if you had any questions, if you emailed us or you asked any questions through the web widget, probably talk to me or my cohort here, Melanie, or anybody else on our team. And I am super happy to be a part of the Q&A we're going to do later. So if you have any questions you think of throughout this whole thing, feel free to pop them into the Q&A. John may answer them. So we may table them for a minute, but otherwise, if there's anything else that anybody has any questions about, we'll do a QA at the end and you feel free to ask there and we can talk about that there. And last, Melanie.
Hey, I'm Melanie. Great to be here today. I personally love using the web routing tool, so I'm excited all of you can join us as well, and I will be assisting with the Q&A later in the session.
Thanks to all of you for being here. Let's move along. So what can we expect during today's webinar? So first we'll talk about our plan. We'll go through what type of trip we're planning and where we're going. Next, we will be doing a web map tool overview. We'll be talking about how to properly navigate the web map, as well as an explanation of all of the controls and the sidebar. Next, we'll get into the meat of our presentation. This is when we'll be doing a step-by-step walkthrough of how to create different types of routes. And finally, as Chris said, we'll be doing a live Q&A here at the end. Again, as he said, submit your questions into the Q&A section throughout. If necessary, maybe we'll pause at the midway point, but likely we will stop at the end to cover as many questions as we can. So let's talk about our plan. We will be putting together the plan for a 5-day, 4-night backpacking trip through a section of the Wind River High Route. The plan is to meet a friend down in Pinedale, Wyoming. We will then drive up to Green River Lakes Campground and then hike southward all the way down to Elkhart Park, along the way passing through Knapsack Couloir and Titcomb Basin. All right, let us get into the map tool itself. So the first thing you want to remember is to log in. I know this seems pretty obvious, but it's very important to log in so that when you do create these plans, they can automatically sync directly to your app and you can take them with you. Also, anything that you save, you'll need to be logged in so that it's there when you come back next time. Next, I want to talk through all of these different buttons in the controls here on the left. So the first one here is our zoom in and zoom out buttons. You can zoom in by clicking here on the plus sign, zoom out by clicking the minus sign. If you're using a mouse, you can use your scroll as well to zoom in or out. If you happen to be on a laptop, you can use, depending on your setup, 2 fingers to scroll in or out by moving them up or down, or just like you would on a smartphone, spreading 2 fingers to zoom in and pinching to zoom out. Another way to zoom in is also double clicking on a spot. Next button here is our Find My Location button. By clicking that, the map will fly over to your current location, and looks like the web map found me. I am coming in from Denver today. In order to navigate the map, you can click and drag to pull yourself around the map, just like you would on other map tools. And then the last important piece here of our controls is the search bar. So there's 2 ways to input information on the search bar. The first is by typing in the name of a location. So since we'll be starting in Pinedale, Wyoming today, let's go there first. I see Pinedale right here. I click on it, and that will fly us over and center the map right on that location. The other way you can use the search bar is by inputting exact coordinates. We will be taking a look at that in just a bit. Working our way down the controls here on the left, the next button is our layers and overlays. By clicking this, you'll open up a sidebar that shows all of your map layers. Now, I have a premium account right now, so it may look a little bit different than what you see on your screen, but I'll explain some of those differences in just a moment. The way this is broken down is into 2 sections. We have our visible layers and our hidden layers. In our visible layers right now, we have 4 different map layers. We have a satellite layer, the U.S. Geological Survey Topo map, a U.S. Forest Service 2016 map, and Gaia Topo in feet. These are the 4 layers that we will be using today. With the premium account, you'll be able to layer multiple layers, which is why we have this opacity slider. So at the moment, the 3 layers up top are all invisible because the opacity slider is all the way to the left. But by sliding it to the right, that will allow you to move it from invisible to opaque. Same thing with the satellite layer. More on that in just a bit. Now, the difference with a free account, while you do have access to all these layers in the web map, rather than being able to access multiple layers or view multiple layers at the same time, it's a choice of 1 layer in each view. The other thing I wanted to mention as far as differences in what you'd see here today with a premium account versus a free account, we'll be talking about creating a route and then sharing this with a friend and then taking it out on the into the backcountry. If you're using a free account, you won't have the ability to download, but whether you get a membership or a premium account, both of them have access to download your maps to your phone. The next button here is our saved items. This will open up a sidebar that shows you all of your saved items, whether they are routes, tracks, waypoints, or areas. You also have the ability to sort or filter by these different options. So we can filter by just routes, or we can look at just tracks. This sidebar also has the ability to sort. So whether it's based on time or title. And finally, you can always search through your saved items. This is an area of the web map that we're currently doing a lot of work on. So while it's already a really powerful tool, it is only going to get better. So keep an eye out for that. The last button here is the print button. So once you have gotten your layers situated, you've created your routes and your waypoints, you can click this print button and it allows you to export PDFs of your current view on your screen. You can change the orientation, you can change the paper size, and then by clicking this button, you get that PDF. A lot of our users will use this either as a backup, just in case their phone dies or they're going on a long trip, or to share their maps so that everyone in their party has the same map to look at. This bottom section is our create section. We have create a waypoint, which we'll be doing in just a moment. Create a route, which will be the main focus of our webinar today. And finally, create area. This is not something we'll really be touching on today, but I encourage you all to check it out. Let us start by creating a waypoint. So to begin our trip, we told our friend we'll meet them in Pinedale, but let's pick a specific spot. So to create a waypoint, you first click the button and then drag this waypoint with that green halo around it to your spot. In this case, let's go with Mountain Mocha as our meeting point. Anytime you're creating a waypoint, you'll get this pop-up down at the bottom of the screen. This will give you your coordinates as well as your elevation. So I'm going to click save. And now you have the option to title your waypoint. I'm going to name this rendezvous point. And some notes and directions to my friend, I'll say, meet me here. You also have the ability to customize your icon. And since it's a coffee shop, let's go with this mug icon. So that's the first way to create a waypoint. The other way to do it is by navigating your map to a specific location using coordinates. So I'm going to zoom out for a moment and show you that I have already started a bit of the planning for our trip here today. I've laid out our starting point at the Green Mountain Lakes trailhead, our end point here, as well as 3 of our campsites. What I haven't added yet is our 4th campsite, 4th night. I checked out a guide and I found a really good spot at specific coordinates. And so by typing those into the search bar and then clicking on them in the dropdown, we are flown over directly to that location centered on the screen and given a suggestion to create a waypoint. So all I have to do is click this. Right now the title is the coordinates, but I'm going to change this to night 4. Let's try Elkland Lake. And I will change the icon to this campsite icon, just so it matches all of our others. So let's zoom back out. Okay, so we are set with all of our waypoints. From here on out, the focus is going to be on route creation. To create a route, the first step is just to click this Create a Route button. When you click that, it opens up this snack bar at the bottom of your screen, which gives you the options of 4 different routing modes. We have hiking mode, cycling, driving, and straight line. These first 3 modes all use OpenStreetMap data. And what that means is that when you're creating routes, it's highly recommended to use them over these OpenStreetMap-based sources. We are currently in our Gaia Topo feet map. And as you can see here, we are utilizing OpenStreetMap data. And so this would be a good choice, as well as others, when you are using one of these 3 modes. The thing that separates hiking, cycling, and driving from straight line is that they utilize our snap to trail feature. And what that means is when you're creating a route in one of these 3 modes, when you are dropping route points, the trail will snap onto existing trails or roads, again, depending on which route you're in, or mode you're in. If you choose straight line mode, this is going to simply give you the shortest distance between any 2 points. So since we have our rendezvous point down here at Mountain Mocha, and we have our trailhead here, let's start by creating a driving route between those 2 points. So I'll switch to driving mode. And when you're in route planning mode, you can navigate the map just like you would if you were out of this mode. And so I'm going to zoom in and start our route by clicking right at our waypoint. Doesn't have to be a waypoint, but this is helpful for marking that spot just for us visually. Now I'm going to zoom back out and navigate the map to our trailhead here at Green River Lakes. Let's get in a little bit closer. And by clicking here, we've now snapped to the road, and we have our drive from our rendezvous point down in Pinedale all the way to our trailhead up here. Now down in the snack bar, you'll notice that we have distance, looks like about a 50-mile drive. We have our ascent and descent, and we also get to see a nice elevation profile. One of the really cool features here is the ability to drag your mouse across this elevation profile, and you'll notice that blue dot moving along the route in the corresponding location to where you are as you drag across the elevation profile. So to save your route, you just click save, and we'll get similar options to a waypoint. We can title the route. So I'll call this drive from Pinedale to Trailhead. We have the option to change the color. I'll leave that alone for now. And if we want, we can add notes. So along this route, there's really one important turn. It's this right here where we get onto 352. So I'm going to add that as a note here, just so our friend doesn't miss that. Turn right on 352. All right, so now that we have created our first driving route, it's time to start our hike. So we have our trailhead here at Green River Lakes Campground, and you can follow the trail here to our first night campsite. So let's create this route. We'll click the Create Route button, click our starting point, make sure we're in hiking mode, and then click our endpoint. All right. Now, this is important to always check that the trail, while it's really convenient that it follows snap to trail, you do still want to check to make sure it's the way you want to go. Now, I read in a guidebook that the east side here of Green River Lake, this lake, it is a lot more picturesque than the west side. And so what I can do is place my mouse over the route, see that hand appear. That indicates that it's ready to be moved. I click and drag that over to the spot where I want to hike. And that will pull the trail, creating a new route point to the correct location. One little issue here I'm seeing is that we have a little tail here. I'll zoom in so we can see it a little better. This is a unnecessary out and back that just happens to be there because of the previous snap to trail location. But I can fix this the same way I did the other. I hover over this spot, see that hand. I can then click and drag over to the correct trail. And it looks like that did something funky over here. I'm gonna try to delete this route point and see what happens. So that took us back to the other side. Let's try one more time, hovering over and dragging over here. There we go. So I'll zoom back out just a little bit. Now we can see we have our day one hike from the trailhead to our night one campsite. It's about 10 miles. We can see our ascent and descent both right around 1,500 feet. And just like we could see in drive mode, we have this elevation profile that shows us exactly where we are with that blue dot along any point. I click save, and let's name this day one. All right, we are ready for day two. You can see our day two campsite right here. We click here to create another route. Click our starting point. And again, one way to do this is to click the endpoint. And that snapped directly to, it looks like a very direct route. Only a 7-mile day, but it looks like some pretty serious elevation gain. So we'll call that day two. All right, so we have reached about the midpoint here, and I'd like to do a quick poll just to check in and see how everyone is doing. Take a second to fill in your answers, and we can see if it's worth taking a pause or if we should continue along. It looks like, for the most part, we're all good. If there are any questions, please put those in the Q&A section in the Zoom interface, and we will try to cover all of those at the end of the presentation here. So this is where things get a bit more complicated. We can see night 2 campsite, and here's night 3 over here. Let's see what happens. So what we really want to do is pass through Knapsack Couloir and Titcomb Basin right along here. We can try using our normal hiking route creation mode, but what you'll see happens is that instead of going through that area that we're so excited about, we get routed well out of the way, and it doesn't take us to this spot. Now, the reason for that, you can probably tell if you look close. This trail ends right here, and the other trail that we want to pick up starts over here. So we do have this area where we'll be leaving the trail, and for that, we're going to need a different type of route creation. So let's create the first segment of our day using our regular, or I shouldn't say regular, but our, as we have been, hiking routing mode. So I click the starting point, and I click to where the trail ends, and that snaps right to it, creating our first segment of day 3. So I will name this day 3, part 1. And let's zoom in a little. Let's see what happens if we try to cross this area in create route mode. So I click the end of that trail and the beginning of the next one. Again, we're in hiking mode, and look what happens. 18 miles. That is well out of the way and doesn't go through Knapsack Couloir, which is where we're trying to go. So instead, let's try switching to straight line mode. So like I said, what happens here is we end up with the shortest distance between these 2 points. The problem is, if you look closely, you can see that this route will take us directly over Winifred Peak and across Twins Glacier. And I have a feeling that's going to make it a pretty tough day, if even possible. So let's take a look at some of these other map layers and see if they can give us some hints as to a better route to take through this area. First, let's look at our U.S. Forest Service 2016 map. All right, so this one is really helpful in showing us that our route goes straight over Twins Glacier. So one way to adjust this route and take us in a safer direction would be like I showed you on Snap to Trail. We can hover over our line and drag it. This will create another route point that will help us avoid Twins Glacier. But another option that I'd like to show you is actually creating, let's see, where does that trail end? I believe it's right here, is by in straight line mode or in hiking mode, this will work as well, to create route points along the way. And so I can just draw, by dropping these nodes, exactly where I want to hike. And let's see, in this view, I lost where our trail picks back up again. So I'll switch back to Gaia Topo feet. There it is. And click there to end that segment. Now in Gaia Topo feet, it looks like we're really avoiding this Twins Glacier by a wide radius, but that's why it's really helpful to be able to look at some of these other map layers. Because if you look at it here, it looks like the glacier may be a lot larger than we realize. Let's take a look at another layer, since this is a pretty unique area we're passing through. And just want to make sure we are very prepared when we're leaving the trail. It looks like if we follow our route along, we're in a pretty good spot. Except let's take a closer look at what's going on down here. So since I'm not super familiar with the US Geological Survey topo map, just looking at this, maybe I'm not exactly sure what I'm looking at. What we can do is click onto the map in this sidebar, and this will open up more details on any map layer that you choose. Down at the bottom, we have a key. And so I can click this. Let's open it in a new window. As you can see, there's a lot going on here. We can click on it to zoom in and get a sense of all of the different types of terrain and roads and really understand anything going on this map. Rather than searching for it here, I'll give you a hint. This is some kind of glacier debris. It's some kind of rock field, and our current line, our current route passing through it is probably not going to be the safest. So I'm going to drag these points, maybe even add a few more, to make sure that we are avoiding this area that could be dangerous. Okay, let's take a look at one other layer. I'm going to turn off USGS Topo, make it invisible, and turn the opacity up on our satellite. So this gives us a really great view of how we're passing through this basin, through the couloir. And let's zoom back in. This is that rock field glacial debris area that using USGS Topo, we were able to avoid. So I think this looks good for the second segment of day 3. So let's save this as day 3, part 2. Now, as we work southward, we can see the end of that segment and our campsite for night 3, right by Island Lake. So I'm going to create a route. It looks like we have a trail the whole way, so I'll click our starting point and click our campsite, and that snaps right to our trail with hiking mode. I'm going to name this one day 3, part 3, just to say organized. And what I really like to do is to match the colors for all the segments of each day, so that when we zoom out later, we can get a really clear view of a day-by-day look. Actually, it looks like I missed when creating that straight line view. So this will be a chance for us to look at editing an existing route. So all I have to do is click on the route, go to more, and click edit. So there's a few ways to do this. It looks like the easiest may be for me to adjust this node so that it's sitting right where that other trail ends. And then I can delete this one by clicking on it and clicking the trash can. And then save. So let's zoom out really quick just to take a look. So we have day 1, day 2, day 3. Awesome. Let's create our final 2 hiking routes for days 4 and 5. So again, I click create route, click our starting point, click the end point. Let's see what happens if we miss the trail, even when we're in hiking mode, which should be snap to trail. If we drop our endpoint off of a trail, it's not able to snap to a trail. But if that does happen, it's pretty straightforward to just move that waypoint, or excuse me, move that route point to the campsite, and that will allow us to snap right to the trail. I click save and name it day 4. It is time for our final day. If everything went to plan, this should be a shorter one. I click create route, click the starting point, click the end point, and it looks like we got a pretty direct path, only 5 miles straight to parking lot where we will be leaving the trail. I click save and name this day 5. So let's zoom out and take a look at what we just built. We have our starting point in Pinedale. We drive up to our starting point in Green River Lakes. We have day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5. Everything looks good. So it's time for us to share with our friend. Now, the best way for us to do this is by moving all of this information into a folder. So what we'll do is click over here, and let's start with our waypoints. So our waypoints, we have night 1, working our way up, 2, 3, finish, rendezvous point. Here's everything that we've created today for this trip. If I hold down shift when I click, I can select them all at once. And then I just click file to folder. Now in this case, I'm going to create a new folder, and let's call this Wind River High Route. I click create folder, Now that the new folder has been created, I click on it, and 8 items have been filed away. You can see here on the right side, our waypoints are all in the folder named Wind River High Route. Now let's do the same thing for our routes. So we go into the routes folder. As you can see, we have day 1, 2, all of the segments from day 3, day 4, and day 5. For our purposes right now, I'm going to leave out this drive to Pinedale, but depending on the situation, you may want to include that. I'll explain why in just a minute. Same thing, you click the bottom, or you could start at the top and click shift, or hold shift and click. Let's try this again. There we go. And same thing, file to folder. Now that we already have a folder named Wind River High Route, we can file them away without creating anything new. And now let's navigate to our folders. So we can see a folder that we just created right here. To open it, you can click right in. And oh, it looks like we got an extra waypoint over there. We can ignore that for the moment. It's not going to affect what we're sharing here. So actually, looks like we might have missed something. Let's go back and check. I don't see the route between for day 1. Let's go back to routes. There it is. Day 1 is missing. So I click it, file to folder, select the Wind River High Route folder with a click. Now we should have everything we're looking for in our folder. So back to our folders page. In the Wind River High Route folder. Now, as you can see, all of our routes are present, all of our waypoints are there. Down below, we can see our distance and ascent. This is the reason that I chose to leave out that driving route, just because that would add an extra 50 miles that we won't actually be hiking, so maybe not the best way to view our trip totals. Now, in order to save, to share, excuse me, there's a few ways to do it. One of the easiest ways here is just to toggle from private to public by clicking on it. And then you can click this hyperlink button and get a shareable link. So you copy this, you can put it in text and email and share that directly with your friend who, by following that, will open up this folder. Another way to do it is to put in their email, and it'll send the email with this link directly to them. And then the last way I want to mention, if you're planning to use this information possibly with another tool that's not Gaia GPS, you also have the ability to download the data. There are 3 different options. You can download a GPX, a KML, or a GeoJSON, and those can then be uploaded wherever you like. So we have accomplished our mission here for the day. We have planned our backpacking trip through part of the Wind River High Route. We have now shared it with our friend. And it's success. I really hope that you'll learn something here today that will help you plan your next great adventure. I will now be passing the mic over to Chris and Melanie to answer any questions that you may have had throughout this presentation. I'll see you next time.